Okay. Well, the internet is melting down right now as the Epstein documents are slowly but surely being released. Although there's still a lot of redacted information, a lot of news is coming out, right? People everywhere, all over social media, are talking about it. People are refreshing their feeds, posting about it, and waiting for justice and waiting for some kind of moment where everything is going to make sense and somehow people are going to be brought, to justice with all of the information that's coming out. Right, that's what's going on. And I am not a political commentator. What I do is I help men, primarily, some women in some relationships as well, do better with their inner game mindset and relationships, particularly. So, dating and relationships is the key thing that I do and talk about here on my channel. And then it's also a lot of related things to your mindset and reconditioning your mind and your responses and your behaviors. So, that's what I focus on, not necessarily wider, broader political comments, but kind of hard to escape this story, right? It's everywhere, and it affects people's mindset. It affects how people approach dating. It affects how people approach their own relationships. It affects how people raise their children. Certainly, it affects people and what they think about the system and voting and our leadership and people in Hollywood, right? And so on and so on. And so it affects so much the idea that so many people could be involved in, you know, we'll say, I don't know how to do this stream without censoring. I don't know how to censor myself for this. I'm going to try my best. I think that I have an important message, but the minute I say the wrong thing, I will get censored, which should tell you, by the way, exactly what's going on, right? But I don't know. Some people do are allowed to push back, and they get mainstreamed. So I don't know how that happens. It just sort of happens. Guys like Sean Ryan podcast has been doing a good job at sticking with the Epstein story, not just letting it go and wanting to know answers and wanting to have justice served. So there are big podcasts out there that are with a lot more reach, a lot more audience that are interested in this and that do not want to just let this go. Right? They want to see justice. They want answers. Who knows how far they'll go, though? Right? Well, why is one allowed through and the other not? I can't tell you. I only know what I know when it comes to censorship. And that's another thing too, is your ideas, if you haven't figured it out by now, your ideas are being censored and suppressed, and other ideas are allowed to flourish and thrive. There is a psyops that's going on. Some of it is just marketing, right? Just wanting to get you to buy stuff, and it's not that nefarious. But other aspects of things are a lot more involved and detailed than you think. And the thing is, the goal, okay, is to confuse you and make you think you know what's going on when you don't. So I'll give you a little bit. I won't go into detail about my background with government work because I still do things with the government. And I don't need to get myself in trouble, okay? But I'm nobody special, really, okay? I mean, some might think I am, but I mean, I've worked in areas that allowed me access to classified information. I've worked adjacent. We'll say I worked adjacent to psychological operations and knowing what happens in that world, and knowing some aspects of how, like, government, for example, can handle information and things and like that. So I know how psyop works probably better than the average person. And so I'll bring that insight to the stream. I'm not going to say anything classified. I'm not going to say anything that would be that crazy or get me in trouble. Some of it's just common sense, really. But I just have a different side of things, a different insight. When you're in somewhere, let's say, hypothetically speaking, like Iraq, where fights are happening and people are blowing each other up in marketplaces, women and children are getting killed, battles are happening in the battle space, and then you go to a chow hall and a news story comes on, and you know President Obama at the time is talking about how there's peace in Iraq, and the news and media is telling you that all the fighting has ceased in that particular country, and things are going really well, and that we're good to pull out of there and everything is fine. It's not an argument of whether or not we should have pulled out, because there's a lot of arguments to say that we should have, and I don't disagree with a lot of those arguments. But the point is, you understand how PSYOPs works, even if you weren't somebody with a security clearance, and we're just let's say a cook or a contractor in the chow hall. You got exposed. If you were paying attention, you understood. You understood when you're experiencing the opposite of what the media is reporting, and you're going, why are they? And you're kind of laughing at it, but at the same time going, well, why are they saying that? And that's just a very loose version of the psychological operations that happen and that occur. It's very loose, very basic. Like, it's so basic that you all know that existed and exists, and you all don't even think about it. Doesn't even, it's like, well, yeah, whatever. Like, right? Like, it doesn't cross your mind even to challenge that. Do you remember when there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? I actually did have weapon making material, like, and they were running in and out of Iran. But remember, like, when the justification for going into Iraq, for example, was given with charts and people in the old Bush administration going over all that stuff, none of it was found to be true. And I'm not saying Saddam Hussein was a good guy and that we shouldn't have done something. I'm not making an argument for or against the war. My point is, like, you all know that you're being lied to, and you just sit there and take it. And you just get lied to and you accept it, because you're then going to go to work because you have to and provide and do important things, or you're going to escape into drugs, to alcohol, to the next purchase you need to make on Amazon or Walmart, right? The next distraction you can get yourself involved in, whether it's your sports team, your golf game, your video game, or your favorite show on Netflix, right? And you don't want to disrupt those things. Nobody does. I don't want to disrupt those things for myself either. So you're just going to eat the lies that you're told, and you're going to accept it, and you're going to do fucking nothing about it. That's what's going to happen. You're going to do nothing, and you're going to continue to do whatever you're doing. All right. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. Like, some of you are doing amazing things with your lives, and you should be. But that's what's happening, and that's why it works. All right. You're comfortable enough to where you don't want to disrupt that comfort level, and also uncomfortable enough where you can't stop working and can't stop what you need to, you can't stop the tasks that you need to do in order to survive and provide for yourselves. That you're just not going to stop and question things, because it's up to somebody else to question that. And then we're hoping that those who are in government, those whose job it is to question things and to make good decisions and enforce the law and require justice, we're hoping that those elected officials that we put in place, because none of us who are not elected officials are, most of us are not independently wealthy with billions of dollars where we can sit at home and fight the system, or we have things to do, right? So we can't. And so you feel better about the world. You're just going to listen to the lies and you're going to accept it. And you're going to do that about Epstein too. So that's what's going to happen. Now, there's a subset of you who are going to fight, but what you're going to do is hold up a sign somewhere, or you're going to, you're going to do something to make it feel. You got to get the feels and feel like you're doing something, but you ain't doing shit, right? Like you're just fucking feeding your dopamine system to make yourself feel better. I did a post on my social media, and I talked about how bad Trump was or whatever, or you talked about some, the Zionists, or you talked about some evil entity that you've demonized as the reason and the cause for all the problems in the world. And, you made that social media post and you linked a good article. So you did your part. You did your part, right? Some of you will do that. And you won't, which is the same thing, doing fucking nothing. Now, I'm going to tell you what you can do. Okay, so this is not a just shit on everybody. Now that everyone's clicked off and I'm talking to myself, probably, I don't know. I got a super chat, so maybe not. Maybe I am talking to some people today. I don't know what's going on. This is not my normal wheelhouse of things I talk about, right? And for this reason, I don't, because you're not going to, most people will not do shit and can't. You're not even in a position to do anything, so much of anything. And you're just going to accept the bullshit. And the bullshit could be something that some, streamer says, maybe, or some conspiracy theorist or somebody that's not real. Because you got to understand this. Here's the thing about psychological operations. If I almost said we, I'm not a part of the system like that, but if those people who are in charge, will say, who have an agenda to push forward, can get you to be angry about the wrong things, then they've done your job. They've done their jobs. If they can get you angry about a racial group, for example, or get you angry about some conditions in society that have nothing to do with them siphoning money from the system and out of your pockets and serving sometimes a very evil agenda. If they can successfully get you to follow someone who sounds like they're against the system, because they are probably, they are against it, but they're not right. They're not quite getting the right answers. Then you can that's a distraction. Now you can follow that person, and I'm not going to name like people who I think are, whatever, because it's not part of the deeper discussion. Okay, but you follow this person, or you listen to that person who's against the system and really standing up for things, and they may that person who's doing that might even mean well, but they're wrong. They don't understand exactly what's going on, and they're not in a position to affect it. Guess what? All that anger and angst, all that does is create more instability for evil to continue. And because now people are distracted fighting against the wrong thing, right? Fighting against something that they can't affect in any way, shape, or form. And fighting it in a way which doesn't change anything, like holding up a protest sign, for example. And the shit continues. It just continues on, right? And Epstein, and what happened with the trafficking, with the involvement of high status political figures and celebrities, and with the involvement of underage girls, and the violence and abuse that occurred in that environment, that's part of the same thing. It's all part of it. And it's part of the thing that you're going to do nothing about. The reason they released the files is because everything they're releasing, you're going to do nothing about it. That's why. You're going to get upset. People are going to be mad. They're going to post about it, and nothing is going to happen. Now, maybe if we're lucky, that could be a wrong statement and some people could get prosecuted, or maybe due to those who are in control of the narrative, maybe they're releasing some names and some information to try to get the other guy. I don't like that guy and he was involved, I'll expose him, right? And so maybe the Department of Justice or will do something against those people. Maybe, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I don't think anything is going to happen substantially. I think everything that's been being released are all things that nobody is going to prosecute, probably because most of it is not really prosecutable. And then things redacted or kept from your eye, things that could really be prosecuted and potentially harm somebody. That's stuff that's being hidden. And some little blurb in an email, let's say, accusing this person or that person of foul play with a minor, it's just not enough to prosecute somebody. Got to have more evidence than that. And I don't think they're bringing forth things that are going to lead to that. That's my opinion. You have to let me know what you think. I can't believe I'm going to read your super chat. I'm so sad my name is not on the list. Okay, that was funny. $2 super chat. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Yes, definitely tardy today, man. I've had a busy day today. And hopefully you guys will enjoy the stream. Thank you, Megatron. Interesting. Laurent with his comment here. Yeah, you guys got and then yeah, so you got CoffeeZilla, going and there's all these inconsistencies in the redaction across. Of course, the shit they're releasing is almost, it's not that it's not real, it's just released in such a way where nothing will happen. And that's why they can release it. And you know what they're relying on you? What they're relying on is what they've already conditioned you to do. Now, don't take too far offense into this. If you follow my stuff, if you're in my community, if you have frame in your life, and you are on your own mental point of origin with your own frame and not following anyone else's frame to include social conditioning. Okay. That's you're an exception to what I say here. You guys all know that, right? If I say a generalized you and it's like super negative and the shoe doesn't fit, don't get offended. All right. Generally people who do get offended is when the shoe does fit and they don't like it, right? That's usually what happens. But most of you, to use the general term you, you're going to do what you always do, is you're going to forget and do nothing. You'll be like, damn, that sucks. And then you'll go to work. Or you'll be like, talk about it over a couple of beers on a Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever, with your boys after the job's done, or you'll scroll the internet. Maybe you get outraged. Maybe you'll get pissed. There's going to be a lot of people get really outraged and upset, and it'll screw up the way you see the world. It'll screw up your inner game. It's going to screw up your sense of security and It's going to make you, and all those things, it's going to make you feel all kinds of high anxiety, right? That's will happen to a lot of people. Which means you will do nothing. You see, when you raise people's anxiety, most people don't fight. It's a very small percentage of people who fight. Okay. Uh, there's very small percentage of people who do things. Most people, when faced with enough anxiety and adversity, coupled with comfort on the back end. So it's not like they're sitting in a painful situation where their choice is to die or to fight. If that's the case, people will fight to avoid that pain and that suffering. But if people are apathetic and not suffering, okay, collecting a COVID check like years ago, right? A few years ago, or whatever they're doing, right? They're not really suffering. They're suffering silently through depression and apathy and mental disorders and problems and poor relationship outcomes and, all kinds of problems. But it's not the pain. Like they're not waking up going, I got nothing to eat today and no money to buy anything. What do I do? That's not most people. So if you're not there, which is most people are not, to include even people who are very, very poor in this country, it just isn't painful enough to face all of the adversity and things that make you really anxious, like the fact that many public figures are pieces of shit. For example, to a degree that you couldn't even imagine, where they would harm people. Yes, that's a fact. We know this. And I'll give you some examples on how we know it. All right. I'll give you a great example of how you know it. Right? How do you know that? Why? Like, here's the thing. Why are you surprised? A better question. Why are you surprised that so many people with influence and money and clout are pieces of garbage who would abuse or kill or harm children or other people or, just harm people, as long as they're not the one pulling the trigger, because they don't have that kind of balls, right? But how do why are you surprised to find that out? That if you could name 10 celebrities, there's a percentage of those that are terrible people. When you grew up no matter how you grew up, whether it was upscale in a nice suburb or in the streets somewhere in more of a impoverished inner city or rural lifestyle, whether you had money or didn't have money, how many pieces of shit did you know growing up whose parents were pieces of shit? It's not everybody, right? Like there's a lot of good people in the world, but it's a lot of people. It's a significant percentage. It's not 1%. Okay. And let's talk about children and kids banging each other and getting banged, right? Let's talk about that terrible thing. And I mean it. I've done stream. Like, I don't say that it sounds cavalier. I've done lengthy streams for men who have daughters, particularly, on what values and how to think about sexual access as a young person and what it does to the brain, how harmful it is, and why young girls and probably young boys too should not really be sexually active till they're 21. And that is controversial. Sadly, that's a controversial statement to say women should not be sexually active till they're 21 when their brain starts to get fully developed, particularly women. Guys, I would say that is a good rule to follow, but not that we could argue that point. Okay, with the guys, man, the male brain is affected differently than the female brain when it comes to sexual activity. And I'm not saying a young person, 18-year-old boy, should necessarily be highly sexually active. I'm not saying that either. All right. But it's a more nuanced conversation. but definitely 100%, I would say 85% of the problems we have today in the sexual marketplace with people dating and getting in relationships and divorce rates and breakups and cheating and all the kinds of crappy behavior that goes on, all the pain that you feel, who's listening to this, in the dating and relationship market or have felt, 80 to 85% of that could be alleviated by women not being sexually active until after the age of 21. That's a fact. That's a reality. Okay. So, yet kids are getting banged. All right. So, when I say it, I'm saying it because I want to wake you guys up as you're listening to me. It should sound fucked up when I say it because it is fucked up. Understand when I'm saying you that children and teenagers and teenage girls are getting banged and prostituted out. When I say that, I want it to like click as being a fucked up thing in your head, right? Okay. And understand, I'm not coming at it from an angle of agreeing with it. I've done very at length streams that were controversial to some, making an argument that teenage girls should not be sexually active at all. Okay. And there's reasons why. It has to do with pair bonding and brain development and just having that few more years of maturity to be able to handle the complexities of a sexual relationship. And that's not from a religious perspective, although there's nothing wrong with that perspective. It's from a scientific one. And so I've made that argument, but adults are propagating children getting banged. Now, that's outrageous, and people are surprised by that with the Epstein thing. But why are you? Think about how you grew up. Think about how you grew up. How many parents allowed kids to go to parties or even hosted the parties in their basement or in their backyard with a bonfire where there was drinking, where there was drug use, and kids were fucking each other or getting fucked? And there were oftentimes older adults, like in their 20s, right? Hooking up with 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds. How many of you remember that going on? Where adults were facilitating kids getting banged because they're cool parents, right? Let's host a party. 16, 17-year-old hosts a party. Who shows up at the party? What? Only other 17-year-olds? No. 15-year-olds are showing up, right? 16-year-olds, 18, 19, 25, 24, 22-year-old, right? And what's happening at these parties? I remember when I was young, what was going on. Now I was busy. I was a martial arts nerd. So I was training martial arts all the time in the kickboxing and boxing gym and all that. And so I was kind of a dork and didn't hang out at the parties very often, but I had the friends that did. What's going on there? Drugs, alcohol, right? 15, 16-year-olds. What's happening with drugs and alcohol? Who's losing their virginity for the fucking 5th time this month? Right? And who's facilitating it? Fucking parents. Why are you surprised that wealthy people are having 15, 16, 17-year-old girls go around and hang out at parties and be cocktail waitresses and then go get fucked or facilitate some fantasy or be trafficked or be prostituted out by wealthy, rich billionaires when you all fucking experienced it growing up yourselves with normal adults who were just in whatever environment? If you lived in a rural environment, not every parent was this way. There were those parents. If you lived in the inner city, not every adult was like, let's host some shit. Let's host a party. But how many adults were doing it? How many parents allowed their daughters, 14, 15, 16, to hook up with older dudes in their 20s. How many parents let them do that when you were growing up? This is like when I was growing up in the 90s, right? How about now with teenage girls getting sugar daddies who are much, much older guys paying for their stuff? How many parents are turning their backs and allowing their daughters to do that? But you guys are fucking surprised that Epstein had an island. What surprises me is that everybody's surprised. That's what surprises me, you know? So, yeah. Where's the surprise? I'm way I had some talking points. I don't care anymore. We're just having a conversation now, you and I. Okay. And I'll go through the chat after I'm done talking or whatever. Take a break. Maybe I'll peruse my talking points and see what I did cover and what I didn't. But yeah, why is that a surprise? People, there's a subset. So here's the lesson there. There's a subset of the population that is going to do fucked up things regardless of income level. And if you are a highly influential billionaire, multimillionaire, or person in politics, that doesn't change. That part of human nature doesn't change. Human beings have a choice, which is to make moral, good decisions, have empathy for others, and to care about people in general, to include women, young women, and especially to include children. And there are people who are not going to do that. And there are a lot of people who will, at the same note, be outraged at the concept or idea of a child or a teenager being assaulted, right? And they should be outraged about that, but then they'll turn around and host that party for their teenager or participate in it, or well, she's dating this older guy, but whatever, all these things, or let them work someplace where they probably shouldn't be working because of sexual access to older men or whatever. See what I mean? So the cognitive dissonance is pretty thick. People do this shit. It's part of what people do. There's a certain subset of the population that likes having power over sexually developed kids, we'll say. And that's your teenagers depending on how they look or how their development is, between the age of 13, 14 into 18 years old, right? Which is the legal age in most places. I would say I'm not saying legally, but I think that that nobody should be messing around with an 18-year-old unless it's somebody in that same age bracket, right? I think that the cutoff for adults is 21 when it comes to sexual behavior. And I'm not saying that, again, that should be an illegal thing, but that maybe the understanding of the effects, the neurological effects, and what sex does to bonding and pair bonding and those consequences are something that needs to be talked about more often, so that younger people wait to have that sex, especially younger women. Okay. And that waiting till they're old enough to have mature decisions. If a 21, 22-year-old has a casual sex partner, or if a 21-year-old girl loses her virginity and then it goes badly, like the guy turns out to be an asshole, let's say, that 21-year-old girl has a lot more maturity and the mental tools and development to handle that situation than a 15, 16-year-old whose brain is still developing. And she may even be a 15 or 16-year-old who has, we'll say, adult-like sexual qualities, development in her body, things like that, right? which could make her desirable to men, but that doesn't mean that she has the brain maturity to be making those choices and handling those consequences. And those events will affect that girl for the rest of her life. But we're not talking about this. In fact, I'm sure this video is banned on YouTube because I'm talking about it. And guess what? Why then are you surprised that there's an Epstein list where adults are fucking teenagers and trafficking them and doing whatever, right? Why is that a surprise when normal adults won't even defend the fact that maybe teenagers should be waiting for sex because their brain's not fully developed yet? Like, people won't even protect non-trafficked teenagers that live in their house. How many parents, how many fathers out there are protecting their daughters? They've been socially conditioned not to by feminists. So they're not doing shit. So why are we surprised? We should not be surprised at all. This is a very easy psychological operation to pull off because many people are secretly or covertly consenting to teenagers fucking. So prosecuting teenagers getting fucked on an island, even if it's trafficking, isn't going to happen. And nobody cares. I care. Maybe you care. Maybe Sean Ryan seems to care in his podcast. I keep giving him a shout out because he's very upset about this. And he should be. And he has a big platform. And I'm glad he has things to say about it, man. I have a lot of respect for him. But like, where's everybody else? Right? So don't be surprised. Now, here's the other part of it though. So it's not all shit, like negative shit, right? There's a lot of people who wouldn't be on Epstein's island if they knew it was going on, would never have wanted to do that. If, wouldn't go to a Diddy party if they know what's going on in the back room. They're not doing these things. Okay. There's plenty of people who are rich, who are famous, who have access, who won't do any of those things. As far as we know, I'll name some names as far as we know, like Warren Buffett. I don't see him going to the Epstein's island or a Diddy party. He's been one of the wealthiest men for a very long time. He stays with a wife. And I say that because he's had more than one marriage. I'm not sure of his bio. I don't have it in front of me. I know he's been married more than once, but it isn't even from divorce. It was because being widowed. Okay. The wife died and then he got remarried later. This dude lives like in the same house he's lived in for a long time. Like, he's not even out spending his money. He's doing charitable work and investing and doing what he loves. And he's, as by all accounts, from what I can tell, because I don't know him personally, not a shitty person. Got tons of money, tons of access. Could be a shitty person. Chooses not to be, from what I can tell. Tony Robbins. I'm in the self-help sort of space. Self-help, is that what we call this? I'm in the coaching space, right? I coach people how to have better relationships and accomplish their goals by improving their inner game. All right. Same kind of space as billionaire. Tony Robbins is a billionaire from what he does. From last I checked, he's not at a Diddy party. He's not on a fucking island. His name's not showing up anywhere. He's not out trafficking or messing around with teenagers. Billions of dollars, and in the self-help space. Let me tell you, you could start cults in the self-help space. That's happened before, right? Maybe think of some of the cults that have been around that Hollywood got caught up in. You know what I'm saying? With highly influential people getting involved in like a cult, you know what I mean? And then trafficking and murder and all kinds of things happening. Tony Robbins is one of the most prolific self-help guys in the self-help space with billions of dollars, runs multiple companies. He's not on an island. He's not being a dickhead, right? How about Keanu Reeves? seems pretty like people shit gave him problems because of the woman he chose to be with, which I think was a shitty thing to do personally. You know what? If he chooses to be with somebody who's his own age and who looks it, God bless him. He can do whatever he wants. He's Keanu Reeves. What he chooses to do is not be an asshole. It's crazy, right? Not pursue evil things and control and power over others, because this is not about sex. This is about controlling people and having power over them. How about Harrison Ford? That guy won't even live in Hollywood. He's like, I'm going to live in Wyoming. Yeah. Now, I may not politically agree with the people I'm mentioning. I don't know their full bios. Nobody's perfect. But last I checked, I don't see Harrison Ford on an island somewhere banging a 15-year-old, right? How about Jackie Chan, or, how about some sports figures that retired? I haven't heard anything bad about Shaquille O'Neal. Have you? I don't know. He's out there. He's also doing a lot of charity and community work too. There's the political figures as well. You don't hear about them as much. Okay. But what you do hear about people on the list. There's a lot of people on the list, and there's people whose names are popping up in these documents. Justice will not be served, but it should be. But don't get discouraged. Don't think the whole system's rigged and everybody's a part of some cabal. You're really off base if you think there is one racial group or target group or Illuminati group running things. You're very off base, in my opinion, if you think that. That's a convenient answer to get you to do nothing. See, people who go down the turn of conspiracies that are not real end up having all their energy occupied by that thing that's not real. And that means they can't put energy into making any sort of positive change in the world, because they're focused on some conspiracy that they can't fix, they can't change, and isn't even real to begin with. So that's a struggle too, because you don't know the truth all the time. There's a lot of things you'll never know the truth about. That's the reality of it. And so conspiracies are real in some ways, but it's not how you think. I don't think it's organized from what I can tell. And I've probably seen more than you if you're watching. Maybe not, but probably. I've seen how things operate to a small degree. I'm certainly not somebody who is this elite billionaire or something, but I've seen how some things operate. I've seen how, I've seen some of what is done. And it's very chaotic. It's a lot of self-interest and chaos. That doesn't mean that there aren't large groups of people that have influence. They do, right? There's a lot of influential groups even, right? But they're in competition with other influential people and groups. It's not all this coherent thing. It's just human nature, where people packed together with common interest and self-interest, and they use the resources that they have to get what they want. And some people who are charitable and good and not showing up on an island somewhere are putting those resources towards better things. Other people are covering up sex trafficking scandals because that's what they're doing with their power and their influence. And that's all it is. It actually is that simple. And it's a lot of chaos. All right. So let's go through these little chats, and then I have some more points to make, and then we're going to close up. Oh, I should mention, so tomorrow, I have a fair amount of people on live today, so hopefully you guys will get this memo. I'm going to do a live webinar tomorrow. I'm going to do it for free. You are welcome to join. No, it's not about Epstein. And I forgot what I titled it. Oh, here's my title in my notes. Okay. The dark skills that actually win on dating apps. So we're going to cover some of the dark skills. All right. Not to make you a bad person or a dark person, but some of the skills that do work and help you win both in dating apps and also on that first couple dates, right? Or on that pickup scenario. We're going to talk about that because this week, my course, The Psychopath's Playbook, is dropping and it's going to be limited enrollment. And to have access for that, you have to be in my community. And so I want to invite you guys to my community. I think last I checked, it was one person away from 800. So let's see if this stream I can top that, at least get to 800, maybe get a little more right than that. The link to join the community is in the notes for the show. I'm going to put this also in the chat, which I should do more often. There it is, I think. All right. So you got the link right there. It's free service for now. Eventually, I'm going to charge for being there. Right now, I'm not. It's a free service for you. You can talk about your struggles with your goals, your relationships, particularly game, dating, or offer insight. Like some of you guys have achieved some good things, and maybe you want to offer some of the insight of what you've learned to give back. Maybe you've been watching my stream for a while, or you've been watching other people who you've learned from, and you want to share some of your insights. That would be a good place to do it. There's guys on there that are leveling themselves up and trying to do better. Okay. And they're doing better. I mean, they're doing objectively better. I got guys who previously couldn't get dates who are dating and doing very well and dating very good looking women. Okay. I have guys who had anxiety issues or inner game issues who are making good money, who are, some of them are good husbands and good boyfriends. Some of them are single in the dating market and having the time of their lives, right? I have all different types in there of men who are using the tools and the skills that I teach to develop their inner game and to develop their communication skills and persuasion skills with others. Everything from pickup to relationship management to getting a sale to making better friendships to solving conflicts. All that stuff is in there. And the Psychopath's Playbook is an interesting angle because there's a bunch of problems with being a psychopath or a narcissist. I definitely never want you to be that person, but that won't be you. That's probably not your problem. Statistically, if you're listening to me, that's probably not the issue. The issue is you've been losing. There's areas in your life that you're not winning. You're losing. Okay. And the reason that is happening is because of mental barriers. Ironically, although psychopaths and narcissists can be very damaging to themselves and others because of their lack of ethics and morals and because of their inability to empathize with others, there are other traits that they do have that sets them up for success. They don't have the inner game problems or the anxious responses or the emotional difficulty or the avoidant behavior or the apathetic behavior that many of you guys face. Many of you guys are psychologically defending yourselves from traumas, previous experiences, and just problems and stressors in general. And you're all blocked up in there, right? And some psychopathic or narcissistic asshole is out there getting all the girls and making money and doing well. And here you are, all blocked up, trying to be kind to others, failing at that too sometimes, and being stuck. Or maybe you're doing really well, but you want to do better. That's what this inner game course is about. And by the end of the week, I'm going to have enrollment opened. And if you don't enroll before I reach my quota, you just won't have the opportunity. And I don't know if I'm going to offer it. Again, I don't know. We'll see how successful it is. But join the community. I'm going to do this webinar tomorrow. I'm not doing it here on YouTube. I'm going to do it on a video call through my community. So you'll get the announcements there. And it's Gonna be a lot of fun, and I can answer your questions directly over as over a video chat, and help you with whatever you're working on. Okay, so we're gonna do that tomorrow, 8 p.m. EST. All right, that's when that is, and then that'll get you in the community. So then when I drop the course, probably Thursday or Friday, okay, it's going to be open enrollment for a few days, and especially once I reach the quota, then we're closing. Anyway, that's what's going on. So hopefully you guys want to do that. All right. Let's get back to the points here. Some things to say, some things to make. All right, some points to make. You know, Donald J. DeMarco. All that happened so far is Prince Andrew lost his title. Talk about getting off easy. You just don't get to say, be called sir now. Right, exactly. This is what I'm saying. Right. And then we mentioned this earlier, CoffeeZilla. He has some cool stuff sometimes on his channel. I like his style. I don't know if I agree, I don't watch him very often. But yeah, he's the kind of guy who would break this shit down in detail. It's not my cup of tea. I do other things. But yeah, that's exactly a lot of inconsistency. The Epstein files is a division to the dollar value dropping. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty interesting, right? Like the US dollar has had a 21%, I think, is where inflation is over the last 5 years. If it's food, like certain goods and services like food, for example, and groceries, 25%. But yet, I'm not saying that the Epstein files aren't important, but a lot of the fact that they're going to do nothing about it and all of these things are indeed distractions. I think that is very true. Yeah, I know. I don't understand it either. Why people won't believe. The reason why, this is a great point. So T Diamond says, I don't understand why people won't believe a public figure is a piece of shit that is a high school popularity mentality. Well, that's exactly what it is. Many people don't evolve their brains past middle school or high school. So they think this is why the illusion of popularity works. This is why people, not me, clearly, I don't do this clearly if you look at my channel, but why people buy subscribers on YouTube. Do you know that's a thing, right? People buy subscribers so it can say they have 100,000 subscribers and 75,000 of them are bots. That happens, and people do that because when the average person sees 100,000 subscribers or whatever, or 500,000 subscribers or 1,000,000 subscribers, they don't say this person bought a lot of subscribers, maybe potentially, or the algorithms are friendly to this person because, and they were able to get themselves marketed appropriately, but that doesn't mean that they're an expert at what they do, right? Like being let through into a wider audience by a platform like YouTube and people listening to your content, for example, that just means you're good at internet marketing, you're good at delivering content. That doesn't mean that what you're talking about is true or that you're an expert. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who are absolute experts at what they do who are not necessarily digital marketing experts or are not necessarily good YouTubers or something, right? Or good at politics. Like a lot of people who, they're just good at getting elected. They're not necessarily good at being elected, or they're not necessarily good at whatever jobs they had prior to getting elected. And the list goes on. Being good at getting popular or clout doesn't mean you're actually good. Sometimes a person who is good gets popular, which is great. When that happens, that's wonderful. But those two are not the same. They're not identical. But people can't move past their middle school mindset of the popularity contest. And they think somebody with a little bit of clout makes them worth something. A lot of times it's all bullshit and paid for. You guys remember the Tinder swindler? The Tinder swindler who paid for 110,000 Instagram followers, or maybe some of those are organic. After he paid for enough, people started following his shit, but at least, and he had a fake name or a fake persona rather for a fake company. And he was a fake, and all he was doing was embezzling money from women. He was an average looking guy at best, small physical stature, not fitting the internet meme that you guys talk about. He's not 6 feet tall. He's not jacked. He's not a Chad, right? All he was good at was running a system of siphoning money out of the pockets of women into his own. That was what he did. He was ran a complete fraud scheme. He didn't have a company. He didn't make any driver. He flew around in a private jet. He strung along the baby's mama of his kid and used her to groom women into giving him money. No accomplishments. These women thought they were dealing with a CEO who had all this money and all this clout. None of it. It was all fake. Guess what? He's not the only one. Some of these celebrities, some of these elected officials got there. And they got there through fake clout building. All right. There's building clout through fake bullshit. Many of them. And some of the women, some of them, not all of them, got there through what? What do you think they got there through? Why do you think some women got picked to do things when others who maybe were more talented didn't? Whether it's in a company, whether it's in a Hollywood or whatever. We got the transcripts, right? We know Harvey Weinstein stuff, right? And of course we blame him for it and say he's the bad guy, which I think that's an accurate statement. But nobody's talking about all of the women. That's another thing. This is going to be controversial. Nobody's talking about all of the women. And I'm not talking young teenagers. Okay, but women. Okay. Nobody's talking about all of the women who benefited from these traffickers. I mean, we talk about, what's her name? Maxwell, right? But I mean, there's a lot of women that got money, got opportunities. That was the reason they got into it. It's just softcore prostitution. And then they turn around and they claim that they were being trafficked. Now, if you're 17, 16 years old and you get offered a bunch of, things and you end up, doing them and find yourself exchanging sex for opportunity or money. Yeah, 16, 17-year-old girl does not have the agency. And so, yes, she is a victim. Even though she's consenting, she can't really consent. Even though she says she's doing it or wants to do it at the time, it's not really consent because her brain is not developed enough for her to make that adult decision. But it begs the question, where's the adults? Where's her parents? Where's the protective father? A hot girl with a protective father and protective brothers, right? Siblings, isn't getting trafficked. Like ever. Okay, in fact, some traffickers are probably going to get their ass kicked. All right. Or murdered, rightfully so, if that attempt is even made on that hot girl. Feminism, unfortunately, in the way that we are in our modern society, has completely eliminated protecting women. So we don't protect young girls anymore. But the Epstein thing happened, decades ago. It has been going on for a while, and there's a replacement. We'll find out about, we already know about Diddy parties. That was in the music industry. We'll find out about the next thing. This isn't going away. Epstein is just Epstein, right? But I mean, I think there was more to the Epstein thing, but we'll find out about stuff, right? That's why Keanu Reeves being basically decent to everyone, everyday people, is newsworthy, right? Because a lot of them are not. Is America or the world fucked? Let's find out, right? I've been talking all day in sessions, so my throat at this time of day has reached its capacity. I need to work on my throat game, right, guys? Wait, what? All right. I'm looking for more chats before I continue. This is a great one. You are correct, sir. Fame doesn't equal game. Fame doesn't equal integrity. Fame doesn't equal competency. Fame is exposure to the masses. And quite frankly, fame is dangerous. Well said, my friend. Well said. All right. So don't forget about tomorrow's webinar, and don't forget to click that link, get in the community. Now let's talk about the rest here. All right. So I'm going to go over my talking points I may have missed. Okay, so because I didn't follow any of them. So I've made the point, nothing's happening with this. So what do you want to do? What are you going to do about it? That is the thing I need to talk about, right? It's because you're not going to do shit, right? Nobody's doing shit. Nothing's going to happen. Nobody's getting prosecuted. There might be like something to happen to a couple of people that is designed to just like basically throwing someone to the wolves in order to conceal all of the guilty people, okay, in this whole thing, to conceal or prevent prosecution of an entire list of people. There might be one or two people that will get thrown to the wolves, and media will cover the shit out of it. The whole thing is to make you think that justice is happening to some degree, but understand that nobody cares because you're not going to do anything. You're not going to take up arms. You're not going to stop participating in the system. You're not going to do shit. So because you're not going to do shit, right? Like that's everybody. They don't actually fucking care if you care. They just care that you continue to show up to work, pay taxes, and maybe vote for their side if we're talking politics, and buy shit. That's important too, right? Got to keep doing that. They don't actually care if you give a shit. That's the funny part. But that being said, there could be somebody or some things happening to throw somebody to the wolves to make some people think justice is being served. And then what'll happen is the other people will say justice is not being served. There's all these people and nothing is happening. And then some people will say, no, something's happening. And others will say, no, nothing's happening. And then somebody else will say, wait, why are we still talking about this? We shouldn't be talking about this. The dollar is collapsing, right? And then someone will say, shut up about the dollar. That's not interesting. Let's talk about something else. Anyways, that's what's going to happen. That happens. Well, guess what is actually going on? Nothing, right? Nobody's taking action. Nobody's taking up arms. I'm not suggesting anyone should take up arms. Like, don't fucking go crazy on me. But nobody is actually doing anything actionable to fix the problem. There may be some charitable person or group or something that tries to do something. That would be cool or whatever. And God bless those people who try to do something. Okay. God bless those who use their platforms to expose this, talk about it, and try to do something about it. Giving another shout out to Sean Ryan podcast for that one. Okay. I don't know if he's a good guy or not. I have no idea. I've never met the guy, but it seems like he's doing a lot to try to, like, he seems to want to talk about these things. Okay. Most people aren't doing shit. Nothing's going to happen. Right. So what are you going to do? That's the thing. What are you going to do? All right. And this brings up an inner game thing on justice and how we should look at justice, which is really a topic probably for a coaching call for those of you who are in my groups there, right? Because that's something I've addressed, because the need for justice can actually hold people back. Not to say that justice isn't good or that we shouldn't have a system of justice. We certainly should. But the need for it holds people back oftentimes because the world is not a just place and often justice does not happen. So that will then cloud somebody's mindset, inner game, and emotional responses, and then they don't interact with the world in the way that they should. And that's a tragedy. So, what are you going to do about it? All these names are going to come up. It's all smoke and mirrors. Everybody's a liar. It's all bullshit. Nobody fucking cares. And if they do care, they're not going to fucking do shit. So now, what do you do? What are we going to do? What do we do? What do I do? Right? Okay. You can't control the behaviors of others. You can't control some elite billionaire, but you can control your own behavior. You can't control your own boundaries. You can't control your own morals, your own ethics. What do you believe in? Are you a good person? Who do you protect? The real person, not some person you don't know, although not to say that's bad, but who do you protect? Are you a parent? Are you making sure your daughter is not putting herself, God forbid, in a trafficking situation? Or even if it's not that extreme, just putting herself in the same trap that many women are in, which is going through a series of bad relationships until they settle down into another relationship that ends up being bad because they don't have the tools or the skills to handle relationships because of their behavior in their teens and early 20s. Are you a parent doing something about that? Are you protecting your daughters from that? Are you protecting your sons from that? Are you protecting your sons from being the perpetual nice guy until they get divorced and their kids taken from them, their money taken from them, and then they find themselves wondering if they should take themselves out of the gene pool completely because of their divorce and their failures when they're in their 40s, 50s, maybe late 30s? What are you doing as a parent to prevent that? What are you doing to prevent your friends from doing that, actually, is another question. What are you doing to protect yourself? Who do you associate with? All right. So evil exists. That's a reality. Right? Evil exists in the world. And what I want you guys to do is zoom way out here, okay? Stories like this, I mean, they trigger outrage because people mistake information and learning the information and then being outraged about it as action when that's not action at all. People are really just they're looking for meaning, they're looking for a moral resolution, you're looking for fairness. And when fairness, moral resolution, justice, when those things don't come, what happens? People become cynical, they become numb, they become negative minded, and that starts to affect their personal relationships, their pursuit of goals and dreams, their charitable work to other people. You know, the truth is, though, the world isn't fair. It doesn't run on fairness. And institutions, famous people, and billionaires and corporations, they don't exist to protect your morality or to protect what is right or to protect what is just. They do not. Okay. Nobody is going to give you closure on this. No justice is going to happen. Okay. Now, your character and whether or not the world is a good place or a bad one has everything to do with what you do behind closed doors when nobody is watching, as well as what you do in front of others. And an elite politician or billionaire with a ton of influence, they're no different. What they do behind closed doors, more importantly, when no one's watching, as well as how they present themselves in the world, that's what decides their character, right? And how they do that is what's going to decide or determine how their lives look around them. Money isn't going to make you good or evil. Power isn't going to give you morality and ethics. all power and money does is remove the friction and reveal what is already there. If you're a moral and just person who cares about other people, that's going to show when you have power and money. And if you're not, you won't. And people tend to pact together with other people with similar or like minds. So, evil, shitty people who care about having power over others and care about all these things that are important, have weird ideas about the world, and seem to and have no aversion to harming another person. Those people will pack together when they have money and they have power. And other people who don't think like that and have good character, they're not going to pack together with those people. They're going to keep some distance. Even if they're in a world like perhaps Hollywood is so bad that that's what there is running it, right? Evil. Perhaps that's what's going on, let's say in Hollywood. Let's say, I don't know for sure, but let's say. Well, there's people that have to interact with that can choose otherwise. And I've named a few. The Harrison Fords, the Denzel Washingtons, the Keanu Reeves, right? For example, the Catherine O'Hare, she just passed away. I never heard anything bad about her. All I heard was good stuff. How about Steve Martin? I haven't heard anything bad about him. You know what I mean? And I don't know, right? We don't know what they're like behind closed doors. I don't know them personally, but they do appear to have good character. And then guess what? If you have good character, what you put around you and the world you build around yourself is going to be a good world. The difference is the only thing though, is it's going to be a good world if you maintain frame. That's the thing. And that's the conclusion. You have to have frame in your life, meaning not only are you a good person, we'll say, right, or of good character, but you have the strength and the resilience to create the boundaries and standards for yourself and others and for how you live your life rather than getting pushed around or following every dangled carrot. You know, how many good people have had a carrot dangled by someone with wealth or someone with power, and they lost their morality to follow that carrot? A lot of people, right? Then what happens to their life when they do that? They lose their character and then they lose themselves. And then everything around them, even if they're successful and even if things are going well for them on the surface, they end up being shitty people, and they end up having a shitty mindset and a shitty way of interacting with others. How many people have you seen or known or met or heard of, just maybe heard of in the media, who had power, wealth, and were just assholes? They're just like miserable people. Usually those are people with poor character or with just poor frame. They wanted to be good and they wanted to make good decisions, but they didn't have the strength or the mental resilience to do that. So their life sucks. There's a lot of people who don't have a ton of money or influence, who have great lives. They have great relationships. They get with a hot girl. Maybe they have a couple kids, maybe they don't. They impact the world, even though their world might be a small town somewhere. You never hear about them. Their names aren't popping up on any Epstein list, but they're not popping up as the parent who let their teenager have a field party where where maybe a girl was assaulted, for example, sexually, right? And drugs and alcohol were provided. That person's not hosting that field party, right? Character. That's what it is in frame. And that's the lesson. You have to have good character and you got to find out what that means. What the fuck does that mean? It's for you to find out. But you can't find it out if you have a weak mind. If your mind is so weak that you're easily controlled by whether it's drugs or alcohol, or whether it's this creature comfort or that creature comfort, or the promise of success, or the promise of this, the promise of sexual access, or the promise of laziness, or whatever, right? Like, if you're just easily steered around by your desires and you have no discipline at all, that's to include no sexual discipline. You're just after any vagina that will be there for you, right? Like, that's that person. Or discipline on with your work ethic, or discipline with taking care of yourself, like all of those things. It's a mindset thing. It's not just something you just say, I'm going to be disciplined today. It's a practice, and there are tools you need in order to practice it. But at any rate, if you don't protect your mind, if you don't have discipline, how are you going to have character? You really won't. You might have the intention of being good, but as soon as you won't fight against anything that's bad. And if something that is bad or evil is offering you things, you will go in that direction when you have no discipline. So your character and your well-meaning memes and bullshit and posts, or things that you say to make yourself feel better, mean nothing without the discipline to do the right thing when nobody is looking. And your character means nothing, and your discipline doesn't mean anything either if you don't have frame, meaning a strong mindset that decides how you're going to see the world, and you set boundaries and standards for for yourself, for how you interact with others, how you interact with people, and how you interact with the world. And you set boundaries with how others treat you, right? And you have a purpose in life, and you're going towards that. You have meaning. That's frame. Your discipline, your character is nothing without frame. And your character, or your desire to be a good person, is nothing without discipline, and nothing, and all of that stuff is nothing without frame, right? And that's the lesson. Okay? That's what you're going to do about this. You're not going to let this shit drag you down, make you feel shitty about the world, make you feel angry and frustrated, but then you do nothing about it. Instead, you're going to take action with frame, good character, and discipline. You're going to take action in your life, in the things that you can affect. If you're in a position to affect, like the powers that be, to persecute somebody who does something horrendous, or expose something horrendous, or then that's part of your purpose. But if you're not in that position, then you're not in a position to really take action, do anything. Maybe in small ways with like voting, for example, or what have you. But if you're not in that position, then that's not where your focus needs to be. Your focus needs to be on affecting your purpose in life, getting you to that purpose, and affecting others around you. Okay, so that they can do well in life too, right? And that they can be helped, if you will. That's what it is. Just collecting information, screaming on the internet, having debates over a beer. It's nothing wrong with those things. If you do those things every now and then, have fun with it. But don't confuse that with purpose, frame, character, and discipline. Don't confuse those things, because they're not. Collecting information is not action taking. Okay? And collecting information and having arguments and debates and then going back to your life, that's not anything substantial. It's just distractions. Sometimes the distraction's okay. Sometimes the discussion is just fine. But don't confuse it with taking real action to affect the world in a positive way. That's that apathy I've been talking about. Don't fall into that trap, okay? One more time for the those who didn't hear the first couple times I said it, is character means nothing without discipline, and your character and discipline mean nothing without frame. And so you have to have those things and you have to take positive action in your life. That's how you combat shit like Epstein. If you're taking positive action in your life and in your community with others around you, being a positive example for your children, your nieces, your nephews, whoever, that's how you protect children, right? And if you're in a position of fighting directly, then you fight. But if you're just screaming on the internet, that's not accomplishing anything. Take action in your life, creating a good environment, creating a good community, doing something charitable, picking a job or a vocation that involves helping others. These are all things that you can do. You want to combat injustice? It starts with the actions you take when no one is looking and extends into how you interact with the world and what changes and what real interactions you have. The rest is all just fake and bullshit and meaningless. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you like and subscribed. Okay. Taking a peek here. Well, I'm going to. Yep. Was Steve McQueen a good guy? He died too young. I think he probably was. I mean, he definitely dated around, had a few relationships, was known to be a little bit of a womanizer, but I wouldn't say that's certainly not the same as being a predator, right? Or anything like that. He was around in a different time too. Just before we knew more stuff. I mean, it was pretty acceptable for like 18-year-old girls to hook up with like whoever, you know what I mean? Back in what, the 60s, the 50s or whatever. But we know more about neuroscience today. We know we have the evidence. We have the evidence from neuroscience to know that some 18-year-old girl hooking up with dudes is probably not the right answer. And that's going to be damaging to her more than it's going to be beneficial. We already know that. The science is out. People, you know what I mean? So that, let alone a 17 or 16-year-old. So like there was a time when the 16, 17-year-old girl hooked up with the 25, 26-year-old guy, and they got married and stuff, right? And arguably if they get married and stay that way, then that's not really damaging, but that doesn't happen in 2026. So we know, so just like take a celebrity or somebody from the 1950s or 60s, hooking up with a 17, 18, even a 16-year-old. That was like considered not that controversial. But we know more now. So we can't hold them accountable for standards that we should have today based on knowledge. The neuroscience wasn't out back then. The neuroscience, the argument was back then, and you could even look in religion too. The religious argument back then was she basically able to have a period? Was she able to reproduce? And did she have the mental maturity to be in a relationship? And that was a criteria. Like that's a criteria from a lot of different religious sects here, and so that was the idea, was religiously driven. And the idea was like, well, she looks like a woman, acts like a woman, so she's a woman. It doesn't matter if she's 16, she looks hot and acts adult enough, so free, play ball. That was the idea back then. And we didn't have neuroscience back then. We have neuroscience now, and we've had it for a while, to know that a brain is not fully developed. The emotional centers of the brain don't develop till later, and that a girl who is 16 may look like an adult and may be able to mimic an adult, but in her brain, she is not an adult, and she will not handle the complexities of sexual relationships in a way that is healthy for her while her brain is still developing. And so it doesn't matter if she wants it, looks like it, and acts like it. She needs to wait until the brain is able to handle those complexities from a standpoint of maturity. I challenge anyone to debate me on this. You'll lose horribly. All right. But that's that. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock, we're going to do a stream. We're going to talk about using some skills in the dating market. And it's not what you think, because the dating market has changed and nobody's talking about it. They're too busy repeating what the last guy said on YouTube. So the dating market has changed. Apps have changed. All these things have changed. If you're single and your finger's not on the pulse, you're not going to know what's going on. So join my community. I'll post the link at 8 o'clock EST tomorrow, and we'll have fun. All right, guys. You guys are amazing. I'll catch you on the next one.